Hello, youth and viewers from all over the world. The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development just launched a platform dedicated to youth, the UNCTAD Youth Network. And I'm here with Mr. Mukhisa Kituyi, Secretary-General of UNCTAD, for a conversation on our generation. Thank you, Mr. Kituyi. Last July, UNCTAD held the 14th Ministerial Conference in Nairobi. And please tell us how you consider the participation of youth among the over 6,000 participants at the conference.
Thank you very much for the question. Two, three different things brought the issue of youth presence and recognition to the fore for me. One, that within the global community, there has been a lot of discussion about Agenda 2030, inclusive prosperity, what we want to do to get there. But many times, it is people who are not going to be taking responsibility for things in 2030 who are crafting this agenda and coming up with suggestions about how it can be implemented. And I thought it's critically important that the owners of Agenda 2030, who today are categorized as youth, should be among the people who are defining this agenda. Secondly, there is an expectation of value change, thinking about long-term sustainability, thinking about impact, thinking about inclusivity. These issues have to be inculcated into the educational system, into the social interaction media, and the best people to do that are youth. So we cannot have aspirations for a society where older people are designing things for younger people. The younger people have to be at the table for designing these things for themselves. And lastly, particularly this last one, I saw that in many developing countries, governments are ready to borrow long-term resources ostensibly for building the infrastructure for 2030. Now, if there are no voices of the owners of 2030, you can have expensive debts that are backloaded and will now burden down the generation of 2030 and incurred by today's leaders. So to my mind, the conversation between generations is critically important. Those who are going to be taking responsibility in 2030 must have that imprint on what we're trying to do in NM.
Thank you very much. Also, every ministerial conference is the occasion of negotiation.
Yeah.
Member states gather and convey on a new mandate for UNCTAD. How do you see the integration of youth in this new mandate for UNCTAD?
I had a conversation with the president of Kenya a few weeks ago, and I was persuading him that there should be no ministry for youth. Because youth is not a component. Youth is cross-cutting. Youth is everything. The main constituency should not be confined into a small pocket. So I think my argument to him is the same as I will have for youth of the world and the United Nations system as a whole. Youth are the core target of our efforts. If we're talking about people to take responsibility for a sustainable future, people to correct on the mistakes of my generation, people to own up on the responsibility of new thinking on sustainability, on value, we must target youth. We must use the energy of youth, but we must also respond to the felt needs of youth. So this is driving us. Similarly, we're coming through a decade of jobless growth. The existential challenges faced by young adults with a limited labor market for gainful employment at a time when enterprises are performing very well are a global challenge for all of us. Governance institutions, both international and national, cannot make sense without talking to the challenges of quality jobs for younger people. This discourse can never grow without the participation of youth.
And specifically, what made you decide to create a new platform in UNCTAD? Sorry.
I have been interacting with younger persons within the organization like yourself and thinking that from the momentum we gained in Nairobi at the UNCTAD 14 conference and from the pouring solidarity we've seen from youth around the world since Nairobi, and particularly after my engagement of Jack Ma, the founding chairman of Alibaba, as a special envoy on youth and small enterprise, we have seen there is need for sustaining the narrative, growing the interaction. So building a platform on which youth can interact with themselves but also with us, and through which we can also inform of new initiatives. We can feel challenged and rise to the challenges becomes a natural next step for us. And particularly coming in the wake of a very successful Trade and Development Board, which appreciated the resolutions of Nairobi and has sequenced youth work in our main agenda for the coming year.
Now, in your perspective, and having in mind the potential of youth in contributing to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, what would you say are the main issues that youth should be focusing on in 2017?
Well, you know, the youth are the whole world. You cannot ask them to focus on one set of things and not another. I think in addition to the normal process of social progress, intellectual maturing, and managerial competences gaining, the number of things that are important. At a time when international solidarity is threatened by the growing forces of anti-globalization and very populous and very pugnacious rejectionist, separatist thinking among many rightist political groups, youth of the world have to rally around the call of international solidarity. Youth have to rekindle the spirit that we belong together and that our solutions are not viable solutions if they're only targeting a small part of the world. Our interconnectedness means we have to look for solutions that connect us all. And I think this is a message that is important for youth. Youth have to ride out the temptation of this populist nativism that is counter to the spirit of international engagement. Similarly, as we think of changing curricula in schools to build in sustainability in business modeling, as we think about areas of inclusion, youthful innovativeness can use current technologies and current possibilities to reach out with examples that have worked for a push-up in areas which need such exemplars, so that we find genuine practice in not only using the technology that interconnects us, but a spirit that finds common solutions from among us around the world.
And in 2017, we also received a new United Nations Secretary-General, Mr. Antonio Guterres. And in his swearing-in ceremony, Mr. Guterres stated that the United Nations must empower youth, increase their participation in society, and also their access to education, training, and jobs. Do you have a message that echoes that of Mr. Guterres?
My message to the youth meeting in Nairobi in July was very much similar to that. But beyond that, I think as we embark on translating decisions of Agenda 2030 into action, we at UNCTAD are trying to lead by example, not only by the establishment of this platform, but also customizing some of our knowledge products, the Virtual Institute, Train for Trade, but particularly our entrepreneurship support program for women and youth groups, to deliver on the promise that an empowered youth is a liberated society. And we will continue to find specialized ways in which we improve the curricula of our knowledge products, we increase the targeting of youth as audiences of our entrepreneurship training programs, but also importantly, we put a youth perspective in the publications that we produce as a way of leading by example, ahead of the curve, on why youth matter for the United Nations system.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kituyi, for providing a platform for us, the youth. Do you want to end the conversation with a message to
yes,
you?
Yes. The youth of the world, we are custodians for the time being of your world. We can be limited by our own historic experiences, but the technological innovations that you so well master better than my generation give you an opportunity to communicate with each other. It is an opportunity that can be abused to send out toxic messages, but it's also an opportunity that can be importantly utilized to mobilize international solidarity, to unbuckle the talent that you're endowed with in a way that proactively deals with the problems of the world and then creates a better world than the one you inherit from your parents. And my season greetings to you all, and I hope that we're going to have an active engagement in the year 2017. Thank you.